Lincoln 103, 5 Lincoln 102, Lincoln 103 and 102.
Responding to 401 parking structure, section 1 boy.
Henry 8, Henry 9. Respond to gate 437, Bravo, for your dignitary detail. 3K 911 unattended, 400 lower level near Carousel 4, black bag. GTA in progress, 401 parking structure, section 4 boy.
Responding to 401 parking structure, section 1 boy.
415 passenger onboard aircraft.
Control 2 Franklin en route.
484 suspect, female, Hispanic, 28 years of age, blue jeans, no further.
Control 5 Frank 401 is en route.
Hello and welcome to another Monday edition of the Private Officer Beat Radio. I'm your host, Rick McCann. This is the 11th day of January 2021, and I'm happy that you're here, but I'm not too impressed about the first week and a half of 2021. Well, we're going to get into a lot of different discussions today. We're going to try and keep it non-political and try to only address the points of security, as we always do. We're not going to get into the back and forth of, who's right, who's wrong, and our beliefs. But we do want to address what's happened this past week in Washington, D.C., our nation's capital. We want to tell you about some fantastic upcoming events. And, of course, we've got a ton of news that just seems to be just forever and ever free-flowing. It doesn't really go away. We can do a news item every hour, every minute, every day. It's just news. And it's just some people don't like to hear about it. We get those people who, they are concerned about some of the negativity in the news, and rightly so. And there are others who really love getting all of the news. If you are not getting the news in your mailbox, go to our website at privateofficer.org, sign up today, and you'll get those news alerts in your mailbox. You can also go to our blog, updated every single day, and that's privateofficerbreakingnews.blogspot.com. privateofficernews.blogspot.com. Well, very briefly, I just want to talk about the logistics and the security aspect to what we saw in Washington, D.C. Obviously, you're aware of the hundreds of thousands of people who stormed D.C. Unfortunately, some of them went a little bit too far, and they broke into buildings, they vandalized, they stole, so on and so forth. One of the aspects of this whole ordeal, as with the riots that we've seen for the last 3 or 4 years in Portland, Seattle, and other major cities, one of the aspects that the media doesn't capture, doesn't speak to, doesn't highlight, is the amount of private security that are actually at these events protecting buildings, government facilities, courthouses, federal buildings, contract sites. And it just so happens that in Washington, D.C., where all of these protests happen regularly, this is not like something new. It's not an annual event. It's not every 5 or 10 years like a hurricane. This is actually something that law enforcement in D.C. prepare for. I've lived in the metro area. We work still in the metro area, Virginia, Maryland, and D.C. And I know for a fact that the Washington, D.C. police coordinate with many, many other agencies, including private security, in the metro D.C. area. Now, the Washington Metro Police Department, they have roughly 4,000 police officers. But special police officers, those are in-house police officers and agencies that work for hospitals and colleges, military, large corporations, and private security. Those are SPOs. They number around 7,500. And there's more than 4,000 additional unarmed licensed security officers in D.C. And one of the aspects that never gets brought up at any of these incidents or events or situations where there's a lot of chaos and things happening and rioting and so forth is that there's other protectors in the area, other people protecting and risking their life and sometimes injured or killed. And on the scene of the recent protest and violence in Washington, D.C., we've come to learn that there's about 800 special police officers in the immediate area when this occurred, and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds more literally on duty in Washington, D.C. during this time. And the same is true about many, many areas where protests have been in the last couple of years. Private security has been there. Almost any large event in the surrounding area, the surrounding buildings, parking garages, schools, college campuses, hospitals, private businesses, you're going to find private security. Some armed, some unarmed. But they're protecting life and property as any law enforcement officer would do. And they're risking their life every single time, especially in the environment of a protest like what happened in D.C. Now, I will make one side note, and then I'll move on as far as the political aspect. One of the irritating things is that not only the media, but many others want to put the blame on an individual for what happened. Maybe the person did or did not help to fuel the fire. But there's no way that one person controlled the minds of 800,000 people that day in D.C. There's no way that anyone can make you do anything that you don't want to do. And what's really wrong with America and the world today, unlike when I grew up back in the 50s and 60s, is that nobody wants to take responsibility for their own actions. And I think that's the point that has always gotten me really ticked off. We can blame everything. Black Lives Matter blames police. People who riot and steal from stores during these events say, oh, it's poverty. That's what the cause. That's what's driving them to steal. Everyone has an excuse and a reason and rhyme. Everyone wants to point the finger to every place else except for where it should be pointed, and that's to them. I don't care about what was said, who said what social media did. I don't care about any of that. I grew up in a day and age where we took responsibility for our own actions, even if our friends got us over there to do it. Even if our friends had us convinced that robbing that store or breaking into that business, we were going to be wealthy and we were going to be living large, at the end of the day, it wasn't those friends that were responsible. It was me and you. And we have to take responsibility. And we're having that issue on the job site. Employers have had that issue for years where people just don't want to take responsibility for their own actions. It's always somebody else's fault. So in this situation, no matter if it was a president, if it was a friend, if it was a social media guru, if it was whoever, no one can control your mind to the point where it forces you to do something. That's my stance on it, and now we'll move on. One thing I am a little concerned about, though, after this all happened, of course, you probably, if you're on social media, you have Twitter, you have Facebook, or other social media platforms, you probably have lost a number of social media friends. We have lost hundreds off from our platforms because their site, their account has been shut down just like the president's was by Facebook and Twitter. Social media has become the police. They've become the controlling party, the adjudicator, the judge and the jury of what's right and wrong to say, what is and isn't allowable on their platform. Freedom of speech has been long lost. And unfortunately, social media purging thousands and tens of thousands, probably even hundreds or even millions of accounts because they don't like what they said, they don't like what they stand for, or they don't like who they associate with is wrong. That is interference of our Constitution. Freedom of speech isn't about whether or not they're on the same page as you and you like what they have to say. No. Freedom of speech gives everybody the right to say whatever they want, right or wrong, whether we agree or we don't agree, whether it incites a riot or it doesn't. We have the right to say whatever is on our mind. It can be harmful. It can be misleading. People tell lies all the time, but they don't get thrown in jail for it. They don't get their accounts shut down at the local Walmart or credit card company or even on social media. We have got to understand that if we all think the same, if we all act the same, if we all like the same thing, and we become one generic society, then the only thing we have are a bunch of robots. Social media will continue probably dumping accounts, purging accounts. From this point on, this is going to be the way that it is. And many people have just closed their accounts and no longer using social media. Unfortunately, when you're in business or you have multiple businesses like we do, it is difficult to follow that way of thinking. But we may have to find a different route to communicate and to market other than social media. Well, we have talked previously toward the end of last year about the name change of our radio show. And, of course, now we are in the new year, and we are still going through with that. We'll be talking about that in the upcoming weeks. When we come back from this first break, we're going to talk about a brand new, exciting opportunity for you to get a very prestigious certificate at the new Command Staff Academy. We'll talk to you about that. We're also going to be talking about some new ideas about how we can all pull together as a community in the private security, public safety industry, and a whole lot more. Body Armor USA, we've got what it takes to protect you. Whether you're looking for stab-resistant vests, protective wear, body armor, or protective gloves. Body Armor USA, contact us today online, bodyarmorusa.com. We'll be right back on the Private Officer Beat Radio.
Kyle loved hunting. He was in a tree stand and a support broke. He wasn't wearing a safety harness. I can't help Kyle, but I can help you. Please wear a safety harness. Please take the free hunter safety course, and please be careful.
Human trafficking is slavery.
And it happens all over America. Any child, any woman, any man could potentially become a victim of human trafficking.
I am a victim of labor trafficking.
I was victim of child sex trafficking, but now I own my body.
Human trafficking is any kind of forced labor.
It can happen to anybody.
I am a mother.
I am an author.
I am a son.
I'm an advocate.
I am an educator.
I'm a sister.
I am a brother.
I'm so much more than what happened to me.
I am strong.
I am brave.
I am outspoken.
I am compassionate.
I am a survivor.
I'm a survivor.
I am a survivor.
I am a survivor.
I am a survivor.
I am a survivor of human trafficking.
My sister Katie and I are bargain hunters.
But my sister Kelly showed me an article that made me change a really bad habit. I used to buy bargain knockoffs on the street.
You mean counterfeit merchandise?
And this can lead to more Americans losing their jobs.
So, no more buying fakes, right?
Right, just honest bargain hunting.
Counterfeits hurt, but you have the power to stop them. Go to www.ncpc.org/getreal. Brought to you by the National Crime Prevention Council and the Bureau of Justice Assistance, U.S. Department of Justice.
Seven private security officers have died already in 2021. Among them, a very tragic murder that happened in Chicago over the weekend. A building security officer was among 3 victims that was randomly shot and killed during a violent rampage that occurred in the city of the Windy City, and police have no idea why it happened, what caused it. They just know that one man began shooting at various people, including a security officer believed to be a college student working as a security officer to make part-time money. His name has not been released. Another security officer murdered in Texas this past week. 3 others, including a TSA officer dying of COVID and a security officer who collapsed on the floor of a school and died. In 2020, we had 328 private security officers killed in the line of duty. And while a large number of those, yes, was COVID related, there was 78 that was not, including 41 homicides. In fact, we just recalculated the figures on Friday, and there were 43 homicides. The violence against law enforcement and private security continues to rage and continues to increase with very few people, and definitely not the media, who's beating the bandwagon to alert everyone. I feel like we're fighting a battle that's silent and in the dark and unknown. And even though we as an organization, we work on press releases, we try to communicate what's happening out there, I just think people are going about their everyday lives and their business and not really seeing or listening or even, taking that information to heart. It is really starting to be a situation where we need help as an industry. We need, first of all, it's kind of like an addiction. You need to acknowledge that there's a problem. You need to acknowledge that there's something going on that you need help. And then you need to seek that help. And in our industry, it doesn't really appear to me like anybody is acknowledging the severity of the problem or asking for anyone's help. We're definitely not going public with it. It's almost like it's a secret, only happening in the dark. And yet every year, 100 plus security officer families are left grieving, oftentimes moneyless, because the breadwinner was the husband or the man of the house, head of the home. He brought the income in, and now all of a sudden it's not there anymore. But no one is stepping up. No one is stepping out. No one is crying wolf and sounding the alarm and getting involved. Not even the major corporations, not even the major private security companies or other security associations, which I've called out numerous times. This is a new year. We've barely turned the pages of 2021. We have the opportunity to really make a difference. We have an opportunity to do something different, to make change. Isn't that what all the protests have been about? It's been about change. It's been about rearranging, looking, assessing, making anew. We need to speak up. You work in the private security industry. This could be you tomorrow. It could be you tonight. They're still investigating a murder of an elderly security officer in Jackson, Mississippi that occurred last year. Police say he was killed gang style. They believe randomly they didn't see a sign of any robbery. He was sitting in his vehicle. It was cold-blooded murder, shot numerous times. Possibly by gangs, possibly for some other motive. They don't know. And yet, it made local headlines, and that was it. Nobody else is aware of it. Nobody else knows what's happening. Nobody's heard of it. I'm asking you to step up in 2021. Every news alert that you get, repost it, post it, repost it, send it to your friends, your employees, let them know what's happening. I really appreciate the comments that we get, the emails that we often get about, we appreciate your dedication in getting the news out and letting us know what's happening. You know, this occurred, we just got something before Christmas. It was from a security officer who said this actually occurred not too far from where I live and work, but it never made the headlines. We never heard it on local news. I drive by that place all the time. I didn't know there was a murder of a security officer there. We are doing our best, and we're going to step up our game in 2021 even more. But it really concerns me that all of this is happening, and there's very little support, very little media attention, and even the industry doesn't want to acknowledge it. And it's been that way since we've had the association now going on 17 years. One of the other points that I have is that in talking with a law enforcement chief, commander, author, trainer, instructor, guru, he noted something else. He said, you know, over at ODMP, which is the Officer Down Memorial page, which was started by a Fairfax County, Virginia police officer a number of years ago, he said they highlighted and they kept track of all the COVID deaths, and they acknowledged that they're possibly line of duty deaths. There's no way of telling where they caught that virus, so that's why it's recorded as such. But one of the things he noted was there were more private security officers killed because of the pandemic and less noise, less activity, less acknowledgement. ODMP, Officer Down Memorial page, they were all over the news, the national news. 189 police officers died of COVID, blah, blah, blah. Well, how about 254 private security officers that we know of, that we've tracked, that we can 100% say happened, killed with COVID, and you know what? It never made the headlines. Just this past Thursday, last week, I found out that a security police officer died at a medical center that he worked at in Virginia. There was no headlines that I saw. There was no information in the news. It was like it never happened. If you would like to help solve or be part of the solution, email us at helpdesk@privateofficer.com. Helpdesk@privateofficer.com. Let us know that you are interested in doing something, that you want to get the word out, that you want to, somehow help. That's all that it's going to take. Free ads for members? Are you serious? That's right. We've been saying now for over a month, if you're a Private Officer International member in good standing, you can advertise your service, your business, whatever it might be, right here on the POI network, on our radio platforms, our social media platforms, and a big display ad on our website for 30 days, absolutely free at no cost. If you know other POI members, get that info out to them, especially if they're business owners. Contact helpdesk@privateofficer.com. Helpdesk@privateofficer.com. In the Charlotte Metro, North Carolina area, hey, you're looking for some training, unarmed or armed, you need SLED certification training, contact our friend John over at Premier Training Academy. Premier, we're here because we care. Not only will they train you in private security type service training, but they'll also help you if you want to be certified in first aid, CPR, or firearms. They also offer civilian courses. Contact John at Premier Training Academy in Charlotte, North Carolina. Premier Training Academy, where we care about you. We'll be right back in just 2 minutes. Hey everyone, you're listening to the voice of the Frontline Protector right here on the Private Officer Radio Network. Now don't go away, because we are coming right back when we've got a whole lot more right here on the Private Officer Beat Radio.
More than 114,000 people are waiting on an organ transplant at any given time in the U.S., and at least 80% of those are waiting for a kidney.
For kidneys, it largely defaults to waiting time, but for livers, hearts, and lungs, it's largely based on the degree of illness and how sick someone is, and that defines their priority on the waiting list.
Dr. Charles Rosen, director of the Transplant Center at Mayo Clinic, says living donors can help save people waiting for a kidney or a liver, but those waiting for other organs, unfortunately, have to wait for a deceased donor. Dr. Rosen says if you're interested in saving another person's life with your organs after you die, it's important to sign up as a donor now while you're still alive to save your family from having to make a difficult decision at a difficult time.
We've heard from donor families or potential donor families that decided not to donate because it was such a stressful time in their lives that then 3-6 months later they felt some remorse for not doing that.
For the Mayo Clinic News Network, I'm Ian Roth.
If you're not already receiving breaking news and our bi-weekly newsletter, Officer Down Reports, and discount training news in your personal or business email, then go to our website right now at privateofficer.org. Privateofficer.org. A Dropbox will come down. Just fill out your info, and you'll be the first, one of the first, for sure, to know about what's happening in the security industry. You'll know when a security officer is killed. You'll also get these great discounts on training and equipment and so much more. Privateofficer.org. And if you're not already a member of the Private Officer International Association, sign up while you're there today. Become a lifetime member for just $99, and we'll also include a free Private Officer International patch and lapel pin. If you are already a member, that's great, and we appreciate you. We'd like for you to spread the news and tell your coworkers, employees, and others in the industry about the Private Officer group and how they can become a member and enjoy more than 40 member benefits.
You are listening to the broadcast of the Private Officer Radio. Private Officer Beat is here every week on Monday. Join us this coming Wednesday for the LP Zone, where everything we talk about, everything that happens there, is all about loss prevention, retail security. The LP Zone returning this Wednesday at 3 p.m. Eastern Time. And be sure to be with us next Sunday. We'll be back on the air with From the Legal Side, the first episode of 2021. This is very concerning as well. One thing that also doesn't get talked about at all is the number of security officers that do commit suicide every year while on duty or off duty. We track as closely as possible, trying to decipher whether or not the person was a security officer, whether or not they were on duty or off duty. But it is important to get out this number, 1-800-273-8255, 1-800-273-8255. That's the National Suicide Prevention Line. Also, in many metropolitan areas, they have their own community suicide line. It is important that we get that information out to our employees. Annually, we know about 12 to 15 security officers commit suicide. Some of those are on duty and some of them are not. In our highest year, we had more than 30 security officers who committed suicide. And again, these are just the numbers that we know about, just those that are identifiable. Many times they're not. In fact, many media outlets do not advertise or publish suicides unless it's somebody of significance, law enforcement, or somebody who is known as an actor, or singer, or some other well-known person. But John Q. Public, they don't generally advertise it unless there's some other type of situation attached to that. But we do know that private security officers definitely do commit suicide, and it's very important that we have some resources available for them, someplace to go where they can talk, someone that they can talk to, and also to give them resources where they can do it privately, that it's not going to affect their job, that other people are not going to know about it. And we'll be talking more about that in this year, this coming few months. We've had a couple situations recently where we know of folks who have committed suicide in the last year, and people have a lot on their mind and their shoulders, and the weight of the world, and with COVID and being unemployed, the economy, so on and so forth. It's even worse this year than maybe in years past. More than 1,000 security officers were recognized in 2020. Did you get that breaking news alert? Did you get that email in your mailbox that gave you that update? Well, it came out. You must have missed it. Make sure you sign up at the privateofficer.org website. A box will drop down and you'll be right there. You'll be able to fill out your information so that you can get all of these breaking news items right there firsthand in your mailbox. Although 2020 was a very difficult year for private security, many different things happening, still more than 1,000 security officers rose to the challenge, became the shining stars of our industry, and they were recognized. Private security, private police, and retail agents were recognized nationwide, not only by Private Officer International, who did recognize more than 577 security officers for their brave and heroic actions, life-saving skills, and overall hard work. Other businesses, including hospitals, hotels, casinos, and the TSA and contract security, also provided recognition to more than 373 frontline private security personnel during 2020. And more than 167 award recipients actually made their local news. POI recognized more than 200 with free association memberships and free online tuition for training, and also several companies, including TSA, recognized their staff for going above and beyond the call of duty. Some of those security professionals included Camila Martinez, a security officer in New York City who performed CPR on an elderly man having a heart attack on a train platform. The man later made a full recovery. Martinez received the life-saving award from POI. TSA and POI recognized numerous TSA staff members during 2020, including Christine Kirsch from Portland, Oregon, and a number of other TSA employees for a job well done. A security officer in Washington Middle School in Springfield, Illinois, Darrell Williams, was featured in a local news article about his annual Christmas programs to help the community children. He said that during the holiday season, and especially this year because of COVID, a lot of families really suffering bad, just don't have the money to give their kids a very good Christmas. He's been doing this for 15 years. He and a police officer was recognized above and beyond helping these families with gifts, turkeys, and hams during the holiday. And I told you about a young man in Hawaii who bicycled to work 3 hours. He also found a lost wallet and bicycled several hours to the home of that wallet. The media and the community helped raise more additional amount of money so that they could buy a car and presented him with that vehicle. Security officers at the Rivers Casino Resort in Schenectady, New York, also honored by the mayor after their life-saving heroics. They found a guest who had collapsed on the floor. They immediately administered CPR, utilized the AED defibrillator, and, hey, he's doing well today. 3 security officers were recognized by Private Officer International for stopping separate armed robberies. Thomas Newman, involved in a heroic shootout back in October. Also, Tracy Baker, who saw a man attacking a woman, this happened in Seattle, intervened and detained the suspect. Chris Gomez, a private security officer employed by Valiant Private Security in San Jose, California, was the recipient of the Private Officer International Security Officer Heroic Award, Heroism Award. While on patrol, he stopped a sexual attack of a child, detained the suspect, and really stopped something very bad from happening. And many others recognized this past year. Companies including Allied Universal, Securitas, G4S, and others also had internal award recognition programs. If you know of someone who really should be recognized, contact us here at Private Officer International simply by sending an email to the help desk at privateofficer.com, helpdesk@privateofficer.com. A lot of news is happening, breaking around you all the time. We can make a difference. We can step up and be part of, we have different things happening at POI. You can be part of the benevolent team that helps security personnel when they're injured, or be part of memorial services for Officer Down. You can be part of committees. You can even be part of our brand new virtual chapters. That's right, virtual chapters. With COVID still running rampant, we are ramping up the virtual chapters where we're going to have monthly meetings. If you want to oversee your regional chapter for your area, contact helpdesk@privateofficer.com. We're also still contemplating, we told you the last couple of radio shows, bringing back our online community, the NING, N-I-N-G. We had a substantial following and community there for many years, and it kind of dwindled away. But if you're interested, send us an email at helpdesk@privateofficer.com. we are considering bringing that back, where you'll have a private space to talk about any type of subject you'd like, of course, within reason. And we're also looking at a swap shop. That's right. If you've got something to sell, trade, or give away, we're looking at setting up a bi-weekly or maybe twice a month swap shop where you'll be able to call in like the old days and trade, barter, whatever you'd like. If you think that's a good idea, send us an email at helpdesk@privateofficer.com and let us know. Right now, we have a fantastic POI lifetime membership offer. If you're not already a POI member, go to our website at privateofficer.org and sign up today. We're giving you a free online training course. We're coming right back here on the Private Officer Beat Radio.
Can we be real for a minute? I'm a high school math teacher, and I'm a firefighter.
Man, we're going to have you out in just a minute, okay?
I'm a designer.
I'm a retired VP in business.
And I'm a student.
I'm a mother.
I'm a business analyst, and I'm a volunteer firefighter.
You thought we just fought fire?
Firefighters get trained to do so many things.
Right here. Get sharp.
What we do is serious business.
Three-quarters of the nation's first responders are volunteers. That includes here in Connecticut. And lately, it's been harder than ever, with fewer citizens volunteering.
From teenage cadets like me
to seasoned veterans like me.
So what are you waiting for?
You ready to make a difference?
Ready to join our team?
Your community needs you. We need you. Visit everydayheropt.org or stop by your local firehouse today and take the first step of joining your fire department.
When I was a gang leader, we probably did business together because when people like you buy knockoffs on the street, often the money goes to gangs, and gangs use this easy money for other activities. In other words, they're getting a lot of bang for their buck.
Counterfeits hurt, but you have the power to stop them. Go to www.ncpc.org/getreal. A message from the National Crime Prevention Council and the Bureau of Justice Assistance, U.S. Department of Justice.
Drones are fun to fly, but the fun ends when you fly one near a wildfire. There is a lot of low-level air traffic over a wildfire, and pilots are focused on their mission. Unexpected aircraft, even small drones near a fire, puts lives at risk. No drone flight or picture or video is worth a life. Not only is it a bad and dangerous idea, only authorized aircraft are permitted to fly near wildfires. Drones and wildfires don't mix. Be smart, be safe, stay away.
We are over here at the news desk this morning, and like always, there is just a ton of news happening. A couple of highlighted stories, though, I'd like to bring you from Brooklyn Center, Minnesota. Vincent Williams, a 300-pound, 6'4" security officer, did not hesitate when he saw a Minnesota state trooper being attacked by a driver who had crashed his car Sunday night. Williams, 30 years old, said he helped the trooper detain the suspect, Matthew William Cleve, without hesitation. Cleve is now facing 3 felony charges related to the incident. Williams said he did not want to just stand around and wait for something worse to happen, so he immediately stepped in, helping to pin the man to the ground while the trooper was able to subdue him with a taser. He said that he's put his 14 years of security experience to use during that incident, and we have reached out to the local media who first brought that story, and we hope to be able to present him an award in this upcoming week, if not sooner. In Mobile, Alabama, a scene right out of the movies happened this past week. Police say a Brinks armored truck was robbed at a Chevron station in broad daylight with customers everywhere. Shots were fired. People were running. Security officer was on the ground. It looked like a scene straight out of the newest movie. A car sped off, 3 suspects on the loose. But now police say it was all a setup. The armored Brinks security guard, Jonah Bassard, has been arrested for spearheading the robbery and the shooting. He's been charged with 2 counts of felony theft of property in the first degree and theft and conspiracy. His girlfriend, Sierra Overton, 24, also charged with receiving stolen property and theft conspiracy. His brother, Isaiah Campbell, 24, also arrested on the same charges. Police and customers, witnesses say an AR-15 was used. Shots were fired. It was a very dangerous situation. They don't understand how anyone could do this. Speaking about shots being fired, this was a real armored truck robbery that occurred in North Miami Beach this past week. An ATM at a Wells Fargo was being serviced by an armored truck from an armored truck company when someone stopped and tried to hold them up. The armored truck security officer pulled his weapon. Shots were fired. The man fled. The FBI is still looking for him, but this definitely was the real deal. Again, another very dangerous situation where someone could have been injured or even killed. Security officers face this all the time. Here's something from the news. I'll tell you, I just cannot understand. I cannot believe it. I cannot get my head wrapped around it, as they say. A Memphis police officer is accused of kidnapping and murdering a man while on duty. The Memphis Police Department has identified Officer Patrick Ferguson as the officer who committed these heinous crimes. He's facing first-degree murder in perpetration of aggravated kidnapping, especially aggravated kidnapping, abuse of a corpse, and tampering and fabricating evidence. A friend of his is also arrested and charged with the same crime after the fact, tampering with evidence and with a corpse. It is just extremely hard to believe that anyone would do this, let alone a police officer and one who was on duty. He actually committed the murder in the back seat of his vehicle, of his police vehicle. In Virginia, a teen was killed by an exploding grenade that he purchased at a thrift store. Authorities say that the teens thought it was a training grenade or fake grenade, but it was actually still live. The MK2 grenade, a World War II style grenade, blew up while it was being handled. The investigation certainly is still open. A woman in Nashville, Tennessee was robbed at the Opry Mills Mall. This is a very nice mall in Nashville. Police say as she was parking, she got out of her vehicle. A man confronted her. Police do have video and are searching. A third Newark, New Jersey TSA security officer has died. Officer Randolph Randy Munez passed away on the 31st of 2020 after contracting COVID. He would have turned 72 on January 6th. This is actually the third TSA security officer at that location that has passed away. A North Carolina security officer is under investigation after he fired shots during a robbery, which all was fined up until the point where police found out it was actually an illegal internet gaming site at a tobacco business. Police did make 3 arrests during that situation, but that security officer could lose his security officer license. In Las Vegas, they've had a huge spike in crime, so to combat that, Metro Las Vegas police did a crackdown. They made more than 1,200 arrests along the Strip during the past 3 months operation to curb that violence. Metro police say that they set up a command center at the conventions, arrested 1,229 people around the Strip, confiscated 64 guns during Operation Persistent Pressure, and also took a tremendous amount of drugs off the street and captured people who were wanted. This is something you don't see every day at the Grand Hyatt Hotel, a brand new upscale hotel right downtown Nashville, Tennessee, in the tourist and business area. Security at the Grand Hyatt detained 2 men this past week, not for trespassing, no. Not for drinking in public, nope. They were actually detained after they jumped off the roof of the building with parachutes. It's called base jumping. The 33-year-old and 35-year-old were both from California. Metro Nashville police arrived. Detectives responded. They investigated. The hotel security decided not to prosecute. The man was issued trespass warnings and released. Like I said, not something that you see every day coming off a hotel building or any building, but I have seen it in the past, and it's an unusual sight, to be honest with you. In St. Louis, Missouri, police there have a program since most of the classes have gone virtual earlier last year. And that program is when a student has a failing grade or they're not attending virtual classes or there's some other situation that might be afoot at their home, police and a counselor go out. Now, in this situation, police responded to a 15-year-old girl's home because she failed a grade. Her parents are very upset that police in uniform and a gun would show up at the door asking about where the girl was and her condition and why she failed the grade. The school principal and that county's school board president, they say that there's been a large number of students who just aren't doing the work, and they're being, some of them being abused or neglected, and that police go out with a counselor to make sure everything's all right. In fact, 1,500 such home visits have been made in St. Louis County since August. It's a little extreme, but I can understand it to a certain degree. In Louisville, Kentucky, they don't have any requirements in Kentucky for a security officer license. There's no training requirement, no business license, no nothing. No way to ensure that security personnel are trained to the same degree, on the same page. They're not licensed, don't know what their background is. But Louisville Representative Lisa Wilner wants to change all that in a bill being called Christopher's Law. That was a man who was killed last year during an altercation with a nightclub security officer. He died of blunt force injury to the head. House Bill 173 would put in place a minimum standard for training, licensing, and a criminal background check. There are still a few states left. Mississippi is another one of them. And there are some states that only require training and licensing for armed security. And even with the states that currently have regulatory laws, sometimes it's just not enforced or not really enforced as strictly as it should be. In California, BART, that's the Area Transit in San Francisco says that $2 million given to them to hire 6 new police officers isn't going there. They're actually going to hire social workers to help respond to homelessness, mental illness, and drug addiction that plagues the train system. So rather than replacing the 6 officers that those slots are vacant, they said they're going to use the money for social workers, and I hope that they have body armor and firearms, because that transit system has been plagued for years with violence, officers injured and killed, and I've never been on it, but I am familiar with the Bay Area Rapid Transit that's out there. It serves many areas in the San Francisco Bay Area, including San Jose, San Francisco, Oakland, Alameda, Contra Costa, Santa Clara, and San Mateo counties. And like I said, it's really, we do need social workers. We do need counselors, sure, but we also need police and security. There's a lot of breaking news. Go to our website at privateofficerbreakingnews.blogspot.com every day to track what's happening in the security and law enforcement industry. You're listening to the Private Officer Beat Radio. Guess what? Coming back. 2 minutes.
For some children, America isn't the land of promise. It's a place where every day is a struggle. Because today in America, 1 in 6 children lives below the poverty line. For these children, living in poverty means going without medicine, going without food, going without a warm home, or even a roof over your head. And that's life for nearly 13 million children of all races, all across America. Where will you draw the line and get involved? You can help these children and their families find a way out of poverty for good. And you can make a difference in more ways than you think. Will you help? Go to povertyusa.org today. Because 1 in 6 children in poverty is one too many. A message from the Catholic Campaign for Human Development.
No pigtails anymore.
Check, please.
David, you okay to drive?
Yeah, I only had a couple drinks. I'm fine.
Come on.
Keys can be a weapon. A few drinks can make you a killer.
Today, in this segment of the radio program, I want to bring to you part of a friend of mine's recent radio show. Lieutenant Randy Sutton, retired Las Vegas Metro Police officer. He had as a guest Jeff Stein, a retired law enforcement officer himself, who has an organization called Cover Now. Cover Now's organization's mission is to aid injured police officers. We often hear about all of the officer downs and helping families through benevolent means, but we don't really have very many organizations that privately aid injured officers. Now, Private Officer International Benevolent Services has done our best through the years to help in this area with private security, private police. And this little story, this segment of the show, highlights really the greater need that's out there, because we've talked in other shows about workers' compensation, how it works, what it covers, but it doesn't really cover everything, and it can be turned down. And so this segment of the radio show from Lieutenant Sutton's program, I think, will be very enlightening to you. I want to play this because I want to further our programs, but we need help. We need support. We need corporate support, individual support, financial support. Contact us, helpdesk@privateofficer.com. Remember also virtual chapters, online swap shop, and also a whole lot more. You can get involved in our online communities, our committees. If you're not already a POI member, go to our website at privateofficer.org. After you listen to this segment, if you really are stirred in your heart and soul like I am to help fellow private law enforcement and security when they're injured, please contact us at helpdesk@privateofficer.com. I hope that you enjoy this segment of the program. Be blessed, be safe, and we'll see you back here on the radio show next week. Don't forget to listen to us Wednesday on the LP Zone, the Loss Prevention, Retail Security, and Sunday coming up on From the Legal Side.
His name, because I couldn't remember it all. It comes with age. Jeff Stein is a medically retired police officer. He's an entrepreneur and founder of Cover Now, Law Enforcement Emergency Fund. Beginning his law enforcement career in 1995, Jeff worked patrol division for the El Cajon Police Department in San Diego County, a racially and economically diverse community in a high crime area of the San Diego area. It molded Jeff to understand the pressures of modern law enforcement. After medically retiring from the police department, he earned a degree in theology and later founded two separate companies which became very successful: Stein Game Tables and 5 Star Martial Arts. With his diverse background in law enforcement and as a founder of several businesses, Jeff brings a deep understanding of not only law enforcement needs, but also the dynamics of running successful companies. And he's joining me here today on this show. Jeff, thanks so much for taking the time out of your busy schedule.
Lieutenant, I appreciate it. It's an honor to be here.
So let's talk about Cover Now. This is a really interesting charitable organization, a 501c3 charity. Explain a little bit of, first of all, your law enforcement career and how you became medically retired, and then what led you to create this company.
Yeah, so I started my career in '95 in San Diego, and obviously things were a lot different back then than they are now. I mean, what law enforcement officers are dealing with today is not anything that we had to deal with almost 25 years ago. So it's quite a bit different, and I'm still working with law enforcement families and officers every day all around the country because of this foundation. But a friend of mine that I went to the police academy with, got hired at his agency, and about 10 years in, he took his own life because he was struggling with post-traumatic stress. And seeing the family a couple of years after the event, I learned something that I just didn't know that law enforcement was dealing with all over the country, and that is when a police officer commits suicide, which is now 3 times line of duty deaths, if not greater, because not everybody is accounted for like reserve police officers and retirees. A lot of times the family just get a final paycheck and that's it. And not only are they suffering with the loss of maybe their mother or father or husband or wife, but they're financially devastated too. So that was really the catalyst to start Cover Now. And then as I got into it, I quickly learned that catastrophic on-duty injuries that are an all-time high in this country was really the major need of law enforcement officers and family around the country. So in 2018, myself and some other retired police officers founded Cover Now, which is a term we use In Southern California law enforcement, when a police officer needs help, they get on the radio and they scream, "Cover now," and then all the police officers come running to their aid. So we started Cover Now Law Enforcement Emergency Fund, and what we do that's unique to a lot of the other foundations out there is we're ramping up to go national. We have helped police officers in 5 different states so far, but we want to be able to help them all. And that's the challenge now, is becoming so large that we actually can't help all the catastrophically injured police officers and law enforcement families left behind by suicide in our nation. And what we do is we give financial resources mainly to those families for their emergency needs upon the loss of life, or the catastrophically injured police officer that may be finding themselves battling the work comp system, so they don't lose their house or their truck or things like that may cover their emergency needs.
You and I met through my organization, the Wounded Blue, which is the National Assistance and Support Organization for Injured and Disabled Law Enforcement Officers. Together, we realized the scope of the issue, and I think that many Americans are really kept in the dark when it comes to this topic. When we're looking at this topic, how have you found the reception to the idea amongst citizens?
Not only just citizens, but law enforcement agencies like police officer unions and things like that. Really, it was astounding to me. Not only did I not know how the system worked completely, but most departments that I go to and citizens that I go to don't understand the problem. And I can explain it real quickly. If you're in the military and you, let's say, are gravely injured or lose your leg in combat, the federal government continues to pay that military personnel, as they should. What happens in law enforcement is, back in the 1950s, municipalities, and again, we have 18,000 police departments in the United States. That's state and local law enforcement. And what happens is, when a police officer is catastrophically injured, the city or the municipality or the department, they don't have millions of dollars sitting in an account in the off chance that one of their police officers is going to get gravely injured so they can financially support him. So what happens is, when they can't work, they get passed over to the work comp system or the city's insurance company. And that's really where their battle begins. So a police officer, let's say, gets ran over or shot, they can't work, they have a lot of surgeries to go through. The work comp system is supposed to take care of them. And what we found is that there is no preferential treatment to our nation's law enforcement. And the citizens in this country just don't know that. So the police officer that's gravely injured protecting their communities is treated the same way with anybody else that has a policy in that insurance company. And many times the officers have to spend their own money hiring a lawyer just to make sure their basic needs are met. So what we want to do, and the reason we privatize this, is so we can cut through the red tape. When a police officer or a family of a law enforcement officer needs help, that we're there to offer that assistance immediately without jumping through all the hoops that they have to do with their city's insurance company.
When you're working with these officers, what is the one common theme that you see amongst them?
That they feel left behind. When you're in the group, the thin blue line, so to speak, what I've realized is that line is much thinner than I ever thought. And when a police officer is no longer at work and they're at home and they're suffering and trying to get their needs met, a lot of times they are just truly forgotten and cast aside. They still may have very close friends that they worked with in the department, but the cities themselves many times kind of wash their hands of that officer because they've been, turned over to the insurance company, and the insurance company is supposed to take care of them, and they just felt like that nobody cares about them. They just, they truly have been left behind. That's the common theme.
Exactly. And it's heartbreaking to see. When we are seeing, let's look at what is happening though today. We're talking about post-traumatic stress injury, post-traumatic stress disorder. With the current anti-law enforcement movement having basically, taken fire here, caught fire in the last couple of years with the defund the police movement, the vilifying of law enforcement, basically for any use of force. What are you seeing as far as the mental health of the law enforcement officers that you deal with?
The officers right now feel like, I would say in general, and again, depending on what city you're going to, if it's a major metropolitan city, like a Seattle or Portland, that there's been so much havoc wreaked in those cities, those officers really feel like they have no choice. They have to deal with this. And when an officer, unfortunately, has to take somebody's life in the line of duty, the officers are very scared. They're seeing police officers prosecuted, fired for what we in law enforcement would call a good shoot, meaning that they were well within their rights and responsibilities to discharge their firearm. And we see videos all over the country where you have somebody charging a police officer with a knife or having a gun in their hand. The police officer takes their own life, and people are still rioting, and people are still calling for the police officers to get fired or prosecuted. So, that thin blue line is pretty thin today. They don't know if they do everything right, if they're still going to, have their departments or their cities, come after them. And they really do feel alone. So in the major metropolitan cities, like I taught at the police academy in Oregon for quite a while, students that I put through the academy that are now with like Portland Police Bureau and things like that, they don't know what to do. They don't know, am I going to have a career? Should I get out of this career and do something else? Am I going to lose my livelihood? Is my immunity going to be taken away, which has been asked for by cities and politicians all throughout the United States, and it's become even more dangerous on the back end than it is just doing their job on the street, because they really are concerned about what's going to happen to them after an event, even if they do everything right.
And let's face it, if in a perfect world, the police job carries with it immense amounts of stress normally, when you add this new dynamic of being fearful of your own community turning on you for a completely justified use of force, it's got to play havoc with the mental health. And when we talk about officers' mental health, you spoke a very startling statistic just a few minutes ago. 3 times the number of police officers who die in the line of duty will take their own lives. And that's a frightening statistic. And as you also said, that's probably way underreported. What can we, as a people, do to help this situation?
Well, back in the early 90s, the first George Bush president had the Joint Chiefs go through post-traumatic stress training. And now when we hear about a military personnel coming home from overseas and taking their own life, there's great mercy and understanding given, because we understand what they've been through, and so does the military. Law enforcement is, unfortunately, way behind the 8 ball on this. Less than 5% of our nation's law enforcement municipalities have any type of post-traumatic stress training or help for those police officers. And police officers see horrible things in the course of their shift, in the course of their careers, that wreak havoc on their minds, which manifest to their physical bodies. And what we really need to understand is our nation's law enforcement really need the help. They really need the help of their politicians. They really need the help of the citizens, and to understand what they go through. Police officers come out of the general population. And out of that general population, hire our nation's police officers. And they are going through the most scrutinous environment imaginable just to become police officers. The oversight is overwhelming for police officers by the time we put a badge and a gun on them and put them on the street based upon their level of training that they go through, on the job training, and so on. And we're doing everything we know to do right within the departments, but they still are going to see and experience things that normal people just don't see. And, our politicians, the citizens, they need to understand that and really begin to back our law enforcement officers nationwide.
How can people learn more about your organization, Cover Now?
So we are on social media at Cover Now Fund, and also our website, covernowfund.org. And people are invited to go on our website or on our social media sites and donate. And what we do is these two specific categories. When a police officer is catastrophically injured, we find out what their emergency needs are, and we meet those needs. We are not dealing with line of duty deaths, as tragic as that is. There is a lot of support for the families when a police officer dies in the line of duty. But for those officers that are catastrophically injured and fighting that battle with their insurance company after, there's not much support, has not been. And it's organizations like yours, Lieutenant, that help with their mental health, with the peer support that they need, and with organizations like ours that are giving financial resources to help them with their needs. And then, of course, those law enforcement families left behind by suicide. Again, you have 18,000 agencies. They're all autonomous. Some departments and cities take great care of their officers and the families that are left behind, but many don't, and we want to be there for them. So how you can show your support is by donating to organizations like Cover Now, like the Wounded Blue, because our funds are going directly to them to help them in their time of need.
Well, it's an amazing organization, and you're touching a lot of lives. Jeff Stein from covernowfund.org. Jeff, thanks so much for